All right, welcome back to the Casey Adams Show. We have DJ Drama. We are here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course, man. So I'm in Charlotte visiting the family.
Right.
I know you guys are on tour right now.
Yeah.
I just want to take it back.
Okay.
Your story as a DJ. First off, how's tour going?
Tour is amazing. Feels good to be back on the road. I actually just went on a tour right before this called Legends of the Streets, which was me, Jeezy, Rick Ross, Fabolous, 2 Chainz, Little Kim, Trina. Definitely a different demographic than, Wiz and Logic fans. It was definitely dope because being on tour with Jeezy and watching 20,000 people react to his music, and thinking about my beginnings and, this music that, he created and brought to me when I was living in the 4th Ward in Atlanta and my busted up duplex, what I'm saying? And so for 17, 18 years later, to watch the crowd like sing it word for word, like as if it's a religion to them, was insane. It would give me goosebumps every night, just being on stage. And fast forward and, being back on the road with Wiz, we haven't been out since 2019. This is probably my 6th tour with Wiz. I've been going out with him since 2014. And
you guys been at it for a minute.
Yeah, and the vibes are great, the summer vibes, like, just we're doing amphitheaters for the most part. And so, it's outside and kids like to just be on the lawn or just, come for the experience. So, and for me, it's even doper, like walking out in front of the crowd and like getting the type of response that I'm getting. I'm 44 years old. I've been DJing longer than some of these kids have been alive. And like to walk out and hear them chant my name is like, I always get to points of just like in my career where I'm just so amazed of the things I've accomplished. I literally, my goal when I first started DJing was to get my name on a flyer. Like,
where did this journey start? Like, when was the first time you're like, I want to be a DJ. This is what I want to do. And what was that transition? Because I've had a lot of entrepreneurs on the show, different business people, musicians, but your story is so unique, and I feel just watching you over the past couple of years with the talent you sign and how you move, it's just so cool to see it. And now obviously getting to know you and dive into it.
Thank you.
What was the inspiration to start out as a DJ, and then after you answer that, what was the transition of signing talent and being able to see talent before someone may see it in themselves?
Thanks, man. Thanks for that. The journey really started when I was about 13. I was, going from 8th grade to 9th grade. I was really into skateboarding. And that was like the hobby of choice at the time. I used to go down to like Love Park and skate. And around the time, there was a group of like black skateboarders. I was kind of like, we were all kind of like, young black kids skating when a time when like skateboarding was still known as like, a white sport in a sense. I was always the worst one. And they used to always fucking laugh at me and crack jokes on me because I couldn't barely land a kickflip.
Yeah.
I went to go see the movie Juice between 8th and 9th grade. It came out in the theaters. Classic movie, Omar Epps, Tupac, rest in peace. And that was the first time I had seen a DJ on the big screen, like really watching a DJ like cut and scratch and make a demo tape and like go into a DJ battle. And I just was like, man, that's what I want to do, and I was already a kid, born into hip hop. And I used to listen to all types of music too. Like I had a little like heavy metal stage, a little rock stage, but I grew up, with Run DMC, with KRS-One, with Big Daddy Kane, watching them on the box and stuff. So I convinced my mom, after I saw Juice going into 9th grade, I convinced my mom to buy me a turntable and a mixer. Thankfully she did. And I would she would give me like $5 every day for lunch money. I wouldn't buy lunch. I would go downtown Philly. There was stores called Funko Mart, Sounds of Market, and Armin's, and I would buy records. And that's kind of how I like started my record collection, with lunch money. And yeah, like again, I was in high school. I did my first party for a friend of mine named Ari. I think he paid me like $40. I had like 1 crate of records, and I did my best for his birthday party. And my goal was like when I used to go after school, the subway stop was Broad and Erie. near my high school. And that's when people used to pass out all the flyers for like all the parties. And I was like, man, I just want to get my name on a flyer. Like, got to get my name on a flyer, you know, like that was my goal. So I've always said, like, you know, everything past that has been extra. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was literally my first goal as a DJ. My sister took me to New York the summer after, and I bought my first mixtape in Harlem on 125th Street. It was DJ SNS Old School Part 2. And that literally started my fascination with mixtapes and mixtape DJs. And I was hooked. You know, there's a lot of branches of DJing. There's battle DJs, there's radio DJs, there's party DJs, there's mixtape DJs. And I used to study it all, but it was always something about the mixtape DJ that was so much like larger than life to me. Like listening to a Clue tape and like being ahead of the curve with the music, or like even later on with Who Kid and Green Lantern, and like the type, like Who Kid was literally like making these 8-page fold-outs of his CDs, and they were like albums, and you know, I was just like totally blown away. And I had moved to Atlanta to go to college, and I became a college DJ for the most part, and I met my business partners and my friends, DJ Sense, Don Cannon, Lake Show. We all went to school around the same time, so you know, we clicked up, and we were, you know, literally splitting $150 or $300 to do parties together. Fast forward some years later, once I got out of school, you know, I never got a quote unquote real job, and I just was kind of like hustling my mixtapes and, you know, doing clubs and doing gigs. And that was really when I started Gangsta Grillz. And, you know, one of the first artists to ever reach out to me or give me a phone call was T.I.'s manager, Jason Jeter. And he literally got my number off the back of a CD. And
no way.
Off the back of a CD. The first phone call I ever got for somebody to come freestyle on one of my tapes.
Wow.
Was T.I. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, I think about all the people that are in my DMs now or call me or reach out to me. And it's like, imagine if I would have turned that phone call down. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Gangsta Grillz, I started it. You know, it went from a compilation of songs to just being like the hottest, you know, brand in mixtapes, you know, in the South. It literally changed hip hop, you know. 100%. I mean, Gangsta Grillz is arguably the most important hip hop mixtape brand ever. You know what I'm saying? I think there can be conversations based upon who the greatest mixtape DJ is. I definitely am in the runnings and contentions for that guy. But beyond that, when it comes to mixtape brands, nothing touches Gangsta Grillz. So, you know, in a sense, I've been doing A&R work or been like breaking artists for 15 to 20 years already, just with Gangsta Grillz and creating that platform. I got my first deal at Atlantic Records through Grand Hustle. I did 2 albums there. I wound up leaving Atlantic, going to E1. I did 3 albums there. The opportunity presented itself for me to become an A&R back at Atlantic around like 2013. Around this time, I was also building my studio, Mean Street Studios. When I went to go meet with the powers that be, Julie Greenwald, Michael Kaiser, and Craig Kalman, I told them, hey, listen, I also have this studio you guys might want to partner on with me. So they agreed. So they came and, you know, they helped me build out Mean Streets as what I had already started building from it. And then Cannon comes back one day and says, hey, Lil Uzi.
I was going to ask that. How did you meet Lil Uzi? And
so basically, there were a couple artists that we had the opportunity to sign beforehand that didn't work out, you know. So me, Cannon, and Lake at the time were like, listen, we're not missing no more artists. So Cannon came back to Atlanta one day. He had a gig in Atlantic City. He was driving through, listening to the radio. He heard DJ Diamond Cuts playing Uzi. He called the station. She answered. He said, who's that? She said, this is the artist I'm working with, Lil Uzi. He came back to Atlanta. I remember being in a radio room and him like, yo, I heard this kid named Lil Uzi. And I was just like, let's do it. Like, didn't hear no music, didn't hear nothing. I just, you know, I had faith and trust in my man, my brother, my business partner, as well as like just, you know, listen, we don't want to miss anymore. So,
what does that look like though? So you take a bet on Uzi back then. Like, what's the game plan, right, when it comes to breaking an artist? And what was that journey like with him going from, you know, just someone you heard to then being one of the biggest artists in the world?
I always knew that he had it in him. I mean, from the first moments that we met, we got in business together, you know, he would say stuff to me like, John, I'm going to be more famous than you. And I used to be like, well, I hope so. If not, I didn't do my job. So, you know, when we signed Uzi, we had also signed a couple of other artists at the time. And, you know, it's a game of dice, you know, like as much as you want to say, you know, like you never know. Like,
Absolutely.
you know, we knew Uzi had talent and that he was dope, but would I know that we would be sitting here talking about him being one of the GOATs of his generation, or, you know, being one of the biggest streaming artists ever? Like, absolutely not.
You can't predict that.
You never can predict that. So I was literally about to get fired from Atlantic. I was 2 years into my deal. They were looking like, why are we paying this man all this money? And why have we spent so much money on the studio, and what has come from it? Craig Kalman, you know, took a trip to Atlanta, sat down in the studio with me and said, listen, I believe in you. We're going to stay partners in Mean Streets, and we're just going to let you take Uzi and focus on Uzi. And then, you know, even when we used to go to our A&R meetings, I remember them telling us like, hey, listen, you got to get this guy hot in his backyard. He's from Philly. You got to get him hot in Philly. Yeah. And I'd be like, listen, y'all, it's not 96 no more. Like, that used to be the way an artist would break. You'd have to get hot where you are and start branching out. And whether it's Atlanta or New York, Philly, LA, you be the man in your city, then you be the man in your state, then you be the man in that area, then you go and the whole country knows about you than the whole world. We were in a different day and age. You know what I'm saying?
Social media.
Yeah, J. Cole didn't break in Fayetteville. Yeah. Drake didn't necessarily break in Toronto. Wiz didn't necessarily break in Pittsburgh. You know, these guys had fans over the internet.
Yeah.
So
they were doing it like smoking on MySpace back in the day.
Yeah, and it was like
brand new.
and then they would double back and become the man in their city. So that was kind of the same formula we used with Vert. Like, you know, he lived in Atlanta. One of his first big looks was on a Young Thug project. I brought him on tour with me with Wiz. I literally put him in front of 15,000 every night. We were doing the Wiz and Fall Out Boy tour. Yeah. So, you know,
I was actually at a show in 2019, I think it was, or no, this was before.
This is 2015.
Okay,
this is a long time ago. 2019, I brought Jack out on my tour and did the same type of blueprint. Yeah, it's same thing.
How would you and Jack meet?
So a friend of mine mentioned him to me in like 2017. I went to his Instagram page. He had like 7,000 followers. I saw him performing in front of an audience, and then I went and I pushed the follow button. And I remember my homeboy being like, "Yo, don't follow him. Like, he's gonna see it." And he literally followed me right back.
Yeah, he's on it.
He wound up telling me later, like, "Yo, I think I'm gonna sign the drum." KY, an engineer who's worked with Lil Wayne, who's worked with Meek Mill, who's done a lot of my projects, being from Kentucky, was also working with Jack at the time, and he told my partner Lake about, like, listen, I got something I want to bring to you guys. Jack wound up finding his way to Mean Streets one day. We met for the first time. We vibed. We kicked it. He asked me what I was into. You know, I was like, man, I just sit home and watch movies all day. And we started talking about movies, and there's this movie called Y Tu Ma Tambien. I don't know how it came up, but it came up, and Jack was so amazed that I had seen that movie. And it just, I think it really impressed him. And, you know, we had a meeting with the team and Jack, and he wound up, you know, dropping Dark Knight around, like, right before we had made the final decision to sign him. Okay. And Dark Knight started getting buzz, and we were like, yo, we got to do it before we miss it, you know. And literally, like, Jack looked like Napoleon Dynamite when I signed him, you know, and the same way.
You see those pictures now, it's like they're like back 2017, 2019. That's the Jack you signed. That's the Jack you believed in, which I think is so cool. Like betting on the horse, right?
That's the Jack I took to Sway in the morning, you know, and put him on it.
What was it about Jack outside of his music that you were betting on?
Just him as a person. Again, he's somebody that I could tell he had a vision, like he had his goals, like Jack was going to be here regardless. You know, I think the fact that him signing to Generation Now, him being able to stand on the shoulders of DJ Drama and Don Cannon, you know, the guy that's responsible for fucking Gangsta Grillz and the careers of Jeezy and Wayne and T.I. and Meek and Fab and, you know, all this part of hip hop, it gave him a good cosign, especially coming in the game as a white rapper. You know what I mean? To, you know,
doesn't happen like that for at such a big scale. Like, you don't see that often.
Right.
To know the stardom that he has now in the past couple of years.
Right.
It's so cool to see. That's like one of a kind.
And it's about trusting the process. You know, Jack has a record called River Road. That's one of my favorites. That's a fan favorite where he literally talks about it on the record about like, getting that frustration of like, why isn't it my time yet? Like, when is it going to come? You know what I mean? And it's very introspective. And it's how a lot of artists feel a lot of times. And especially, even in Churchill Downs where he says like the label used to wonder how I was going to stand next to Vert. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like here we have this superstar, rock star artist. And then we sign a Jack Harlow, again, who people are looking, even the label was looking like, I don't know about the white guy, So to have done it once with Uzi and to have done it again with Jack, it's like, okay, it brought a lot of validity to us. I always feel like we're, as Generation Now and myself, I've always been kind of the underdog in my career, and which I love. I love the challenge. I love the drive of it. So, it was like, okay, they kind of make a hove, go make another hove. And, with all due respect to both Jack and Uzi are totally in their own lanes. For us, it was like, we're those guys. We've been them guys.
Yeah.
We told y'all it wasn't a fluke. You know what I'm saying?
And I want to talk about that. Like you've done it not only more than once, but you've done it consistently over decades, whether that's breaking yourself, breaking new artists. If you had to point to not only a formula, but just, the track record, how does a young artist that's maybe listening to this today, like what do you recommend they do? Jack popped up on your radar back in 2017. Like how do you recommend an artist break today to get to the point where they can start working with, more experienced players in the industry?
I mean, the thing is, there's really no handbook. There's not a handbook to this thing, I just love drive and passion. For me, it's like, it's going to be part of history that a kid from Philly moves to Atlanta and changes the mixtape game, not only for the South, but overall, and, goes to jail for mixtapes and becomes this martyr. Like, I was going to be here anyway, but it's part of the story that, so I'm so thankful that I didn't go to school in New York or LA.
Yeah.
I wound up in Atlanta and, living around the corner from Coach K, who managed Young Jeezy. Like, these things are destiny. Like, if you look at like Drake and Wayne or Ye and Hove or things of that nature, or us and Vert and us and Jack, like,
100%.
Just to new artists, man, it's like, first of all, like, I always believe in being a student of the game. So you study your craft, you know what I'm saying? Like, ins and out. It's, there's no school for music tech. I mean, there are, but, there's like, it's not like when you go become a doctor, you have to pass this, or being a lawyer, you have to pass the bar. So it's like, it's kind of on your own to like do your own come up, or,
find your own path,
find your own path, like put your own music out. I mean, literally you can put your own music out on DSPs now, but you're also competing with 100,000 other songs that come out every day. So it's like, how do you get someone to pay attention? So, with social media, everyone's easily accessible. They're a DM away.
Yeah, this is how we got this podcast. And DM.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, but it's nothing wrong with trying that. It's nothing wrong with.
I mean, I'll say, like, I've done 400 interviews, and I think 380 have come from a DM. Right, like you're speaking that language.
Just in that, I mean, listen, I get a lot of DMs from a lot of artists, and I can't reply to everybody. I don't reply to everybody, but I'm at a different point in my career, you know what I'm saying? And, one thing I like to tell artists a lot of times is like, don't try to go big all the time. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to a DJ drama or the upper echelon. Like when I came up, like Jeezy wasn't the man yet. Like Tip was, we were grinding together. Like it was the come up together. You feel what I'm saying? So, look around your circle, and my business partners are my friends from college. You know what I'm saying? That. Like, so it's like, before you try to go big, like come up with those guys around you. Like same like with the Baby and Jetson. You know what I'm saying? Those are guys from Carolina that made a sound and, came up together. So, before you try to reach out to the big boys, you don't necessarily have to. Like, your manager or your producer, or, look at Noah and Drake's relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Drake literally put himself in the, everybody has a story of I almost signed Drake. You know what I'm saying? Like, from this person and that person to this person, you know. But Drake's manager is Future the Prince. That was his DJ. No different than LeBron with Maverick and Rich Paul. Those are his homeboys from you know, back in Ohio. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely,
you know, it's about creating your own movement. You know what I mean? And I would suggest that before you try to necessarily reach out to someone like yourself or someone like myself when, you know, they know we get 1,000 DMs
requests
a day.
Hard.
Like the people that you might be able to make history with might be around the corner from you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, 2 more quick questions before we wrap up DJ Drama. One is, what does success mean to you? Like when you know, you've done so much over the past couple of decades, you've signed talent, you've broken artists. Like, what does success mean to you?
At this point in my career, I just really feel like success means happiness, you know? Success for me now is about like being able to empower others, being able to make other people rich as shit, being able to like continue to thrive within the culture and keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, I've been DJing 30 years. I've been in the game for 22. I'm literally about to get my first Grammy. Like, I mean, I already won it with Tyler, but thank you.
Hell yeah, brother.
It's coming in the mail on Monday.
Let's go.
Like, for a mixtape series that I started 22 years ago. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Like, success is just like, it's being able to do what I love. Like, I was doing this when I didn't have any hot water. I got an artist, Seti Hendrix, and he has a song called Can't Go. And I say true story. I said, before all this Gangsta Grillz shit, money was tight. Things weren't going right. I was literally about to move back to Philly. It's a true story. I was like, man, this shit, as much as I love it, it's not working out. Yeah. And I almost went back to Philly, and who knows, you know, and imagine if that would have happened. Imagine all the classics we wouldn't have. Or
that's crazy to think about.
To think about, like, if I would have gone back to Philly, like, there would be no Gangsta Grillz, there would be no Generation Now, like none of this would exist. So it's like, you know, you gotta bet on yourself, and that's what success is to me. I mean, to be able to travel the world and do what I love and provide for my family and my loved ones, and to watch Jack be like a multimillionaire, and to watch Vert be like this fucking rock star on another planet. It's like, yo, I remember these kids when, like, they just were wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, you know? So
I love
that's
that.
what success is to me.
I love that. Well, last question to wrap it up. If you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old self advice, what would that advice be and why?
Oh, that's easy for me now. The 2 of the biggest mistakes that I've made was when I first kind of like got on and became the man in 2005, I moved and I had a box of flyers of every flyer I ever had with my name on it. And by that time, I had already started being in magazines. I was kind of feeling myself, and I moved, and my landlord called me and said, hey, you left this box of flyers behind. And I was like, I don't need it. And I let him throw them out. Years later, I had a lawsuit. There was a guy saying he owned the name DJ Drama, and he was going to sue Atlantic. So my first 2 albums don't even say DJ Drama, they just say Drama. And my lawyer told me, well, if you could have proved that you been using that name for this amount of time, you would have had a case. And I was like, fuck, I threw my flyers out. Just recently, I had a storage unit that I had all my records and all my memorabilia in that I literally had since 2005. And I had it up to 2020. During COVID, my phone got fucked up. The way I used to pay the bill got lost in the mix. They changed companies. Just recently, I went looking for the storage unit, and they wound up telling me that they sold it off for $393.17.
Oh my gosh.
I'd been paying these people $22,000 for over 15 years. And when I moved into my home in 2017, I could have very well easily went to the storage unit, got all this stuff, and put it into my crib. So I've lost, between the box of flyers and the storage unit with all my records, all my old photo albums, you know, I've lost a lot of memories and things that,
sorry to hear that,
you know, would mean so much to me at this stage in my career. You know, it's the small things that, you know, I would love to look back on flyers of me from 95 and 96 or old photo albums that I had, like of Lauryn Hill holding one of my mixtapes. and all that stuff is gone. So I would have told my 18-year-old self, yo, make sure you hold on to everything and keep everything and document everything.
Love that. Well, Drama, I know you're busy. You're about to go on stage soon. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show,
bro.
man.
Congratulations to you, too.
Thank you, man.
And all your success and all you've doing, man. I love to see it.
I appreciate it, man. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys soon.
One.